Hi, this is Melanie for the Pardesi channel. I have a special guest today. A couple of you have actually asked if I would do a review of the Avengers Infinity War. So my special guest today is my son, Josh. This is a Marvel household. I mean, we love all superhero movies, but just to prove our bona fides, my husband actually has Stark Industry props from the original Iron Man movie that he got on auction. So we have been fans from the beginning, from the first Iron Man film. And we try to, as a family, go to the films. And so today we went, this is the kind of event where we go, IMAX 3D is what we did today. We saw Avengers Infinity War. So we're going to do a spoiler-free review, this one, and then we will do a separate video where we can really discuss some of the plot points. This is going to be difficult, but I promise this one will be completely spoiler-free because you need to go into this film knowing as little as possible. Try to stay away from spoilers, which I know is hard, but yeah, so this one we will just discuss spoiler-free.
As much as we can.
As much as we can. So I talked to my friend Kartik, who you guys have heard me mention is behind the scenes. He saw it last night and he actually hated it. He thought it was boring. He said people in his theater were cursing and were really upset with the way that it ended. And I didn't feel that. I felt, maybe I'm not the hugest fan where I didn't go in with sky high expectations of this was going to be like the movie to end all movies. I was satisfied. It had the moments of humor that I love in Marvel films. It was fun to see all of these characters interacting together, like seeing Tony Stark and Star-Lord, you know, trade quips, or Chris Pratt make fun of Chris Hemsworth, you know, as Thor. So all of that kind of stuff satisfied me, and I left, you know, you leave with a disquieted feeling because I'm sure everyone has heard the ending is kind of epic and that. So, but overall, I was satisfied with the film. I would even say, for me, it's like a 4 out of 5 stars. It's visually stunning. It's visually very impressive. What did you think, Josh?
Yeah, out of stars, I would say 4 out of 5. It's pretty...
And he's a pretty tough grader, which you guys don't know, so that is pretty good.
I have qualms, and we will get into what those qualms are more in the full video, but as far as this being a Marvel film, it delivers on what Marvel films are supposed to be, which is interesting characters having interesting interactions with each other. They have jokes. They've got Rocket Raccoon.
Yes.
They've got
right.
Chris Hemsworth's beautiful, beautiful body. What more can you ask for?
That was more for Josh's mom than for Josh, but yeah. Yeah.
But I understand why it's there. It's a very entertaining film. You don't come out of it and say, I was not entertained at all. It's very entertaining all throughout. And
I do have to say, all those people who mock me for going to Indian movies because they are so long. How long was the runtime of this?
This is a 2 hour and 40-minute movie. It is almost 3 hours. Yeah,
like don't drink a lot of water before you go into this film because you're not going to want to miss anything to have to leave and go in the middle. And you know, you have your full 20 minutes of trailers and whatever beforehand. So it's plenty long. I mean, the Russo brothers had a challenge because you have so many characters.
Dozens.
Literally, you have dozens of characters. And how do you give fair... I think that it was pretty fair in the distribution of how much we saw each individual characters.
To a degree. There are some that we could have used more of.
Right.
I'm not going to name any specifics, so there's no spoilers. But there's some we could use more of, some we could have used a little bit less of to make up for the other characters. But all in all, I thought there was a pretty good balance of who we saw and the interactions that we got to see. You aren't going to, unless you're like a big Hawkeye fan,
you're not
going to walk out of the film and say, I didn't see my favorite.
So, oh, I totally forgot about that. There was no Hawkeye.
There's a little throwaway line that says like, oh, these guys have gone into hiding or whatever because of the Sokovia Accords.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So there's a few people who are entirely missing, which is too bad, but
or like
everyone else,
right?
So.
Or like a throwaway line like, "Wait, there's an Ant-Man and a Spider-Man."
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that kind of thing. For those of you who like my channel and know how much I like the emotions that are in Indian film, and one thing I've always complained about is that typically Hollywood films don't have that depth of emotion. And so I don't go in with an expectation of a comic book film, superhero film, really showing me emotion. But this one really did have, while there's plenty of moments of comedy and lightness, there were, besides it overall being kind of some dark themes, there were some moments of real loss and real pathos that these actors really got to play some moments of true loss. We're not going to go into who died and who doesn't die or anything, but I found that having heard some of the speculation about who was going to die, I mean, we knew there was going to be some loss. There were some losses that I was expecting and other ones that were a real surprise to me.
Yeah, and I mean, we talk about the pathos of the film and the real emotion in it, and a large part of that is because there are like 18 movies before this one, and so each character has at least like an entire movie's worth of emotion behind them that you're already connected to them, and so they recognize in this film that they don't need to do as much work to, say, get you to care about Captain America, because you already care about Captain America.
Yeah.
And so just showing him, like, just him showing up can be its own emotional beat. And you care because they know you care about these characters, because they've had all these successful films where they know that they've made you care about them.
Right.
That they can have these different plot turns that allow you to really feel for the characters. And that is kind of the heart of the movie.
Right.
Although I will say that the film doesn't really have what we call traditional character arcs for any of our heroes, because the character arc is, of course, reserved for our villain, Thanos.
Right. It's really Thanos' movie, and not going into any spoilers about what the plot is about, but just saying that I did think Josh Brolin, obviously it's motion capture, but I thought
it's so emotive.
It's so emotive.
He's doing such good work. He's great in the role.
It's not just, oh, I'm evil. Like, I wasn't expecting there to be as much to his character and as much that he got to play meaty scenes. Josh Brolin really impressed me as Thanos. And you're right, it's really his story. It's hard to give very much time to, but still there were moments where you really got to see characters that you wanted to see that were together. You got to see them characters reuniting, obviously, but just also the mix and match of who got to interact with who was just really super fun. I mean, we've seen that in the trailers, things like Doctor Strange's cape, snapping at Robert Downey Jr. and so forth. So, just all sorts of fun moments. So I don't want to say that the movie is unrelentingly dark, because it isn't. There's a lot of, that's what I love about Marvel films, is that comedy, is that wisecracking. And
jokes per minute is very high. Lots of jokes per minute.
Lots of jokes per minute. And we saw, even in that first poster, we saw Groot as a teenager, what looked like he was looking at a phone. He's actually holding an old, a game. Yeah, and that's just a running gag. It's like, that's going to rot your mind. Put that game down. Just, even when he says, I am Groot, it's just like a teenager dripping with disdain for everyone else.
Vin Diesel knows the character he's playing, and despite the fact that he still only has 3 words to work with, does not lack for emotion in those 3 words. You understand who Groot is now.
Right.
Guardians of the Galaxy fans especially will be very pleased by this movie, I think.
I think so. Yeah, I was surprised. I guess maybe I was thinking, okay, this is Avengers. The Guardians are going to just sort of be little cameos and maybe just arrive for the final fight or something.
Which is what the original trailers were sort of...
Yeah, but that they are throughout the entire film and key to some very important scenes, and I was pleased about that, because if anything, I'm a really big fan of the whole Guardians of the Galaxy movies, so I was very pleased with that.
Yes, anyone who knows a lot about Guardians of the Galaxy knows that there's a lot of characters in that part of the universe that are connected to Thanos, and sort of the Thanos family drama is a very key aspect of the film that really delivers.
If I thought about that, it would have made sense that they would explore that in the film. But I really wasn't expecting there to be that much there, and so I was pleased about that. There was, my son Josh had this big audible gasp when a certain
curse words were said.
When a certain character from a previous Marvel film made an important cameo, and it was someone we never would have dreamed in a million years to show up in this film, and so that was a fun moment.
I mean, I was waiting for it personally. But this is not where I expected it to happen.
Yeah, it was.
It's very exciting, and for those who are the huge geeks who are keeping tabs on everything, it's a very big pop.
Yeah. So and also there was, in our crowd, we had a full theater for this IMAX midday showing on a Friday. And there was audible gasp in the crowd. I mean, this is a crowd that were excited to see it on one of the first days that they possibly could. And still, even if you've gone in, like, reading a lot, which I tried to avoid, I think there was still audible gasps of surprise at certain plot points of things that happen. Like, literally, one of the, you hear the whole crowd kind of go like that, which was, I mean, it's exciting to be in a theater and see it with people and have that communal reaction. Mm-hmm. So overall, were you satisfied with the film? Because he's an even bigger Marvel fan.
See, satisfied is a weird word, because yes, I am satisfied. Again, this does not mean I don't have qualms. There are aspects of the movie that don't quite work.
Okay.
Like, for those who actually have been keeping up with the Avengers movies, you know that there is this romance between the Vision and Scarlet Witch, which, in my opinion, didn't quite work in those films and doesn't quite work in this film.
Oh, I totally thought it did.
They try really hard in this one, and it's clear that they know they haven't put the time in, I would say, to make this romance work, and so they try to put the time in. But for me, it doesn't quite get there.
Oh, I totally see, and I'm one who goes for the romance, and I felt like, I mean, there was a lot that they didn't have time to show, but I felt like they really established the strong bond between them.
And that's another part that, like, is weirdly a detriment of this film, because even though it is 3 hours long, they still don't have enough time.
Yeah, there's so many characters. There's just so many.
They don't have the, like, we said before that every character sort of gets their due, but there are still, like, you could have expended any part of this film, like the part of the film where Thor and the Guardians of the Galaxy are together is entirely too short.
Yeah, well,
just watching the Guardians of the Galaxy react to the existence of the god Thor is something that we could have used 5 more minutes of.
Yeah. Well, there's other moments, you know, Black Panther was one of my favorite of the Marvel films, and just the swell of feeling when you see Chadwick Boseman do Wakanda Forever. I'm like, oh my gosh, that was such a moment. I love that.
And yet, even with that, we don't get enough Wakanda, I would say. Yeah. Every single character from Wakanda sort of gets, like, not enough time.
Well, you know, it's really hard to balance when you have...
It's a huge juggling act, and they only drop a few balls, but that doesn't mean that no balls are dropped.
Yeah, it's hard when I can't even count how many characters they're trying to play service to in this movie, and I felt like they did about as good a job as they could. So without spoiling the ending at all, I will just say that this film, you cannot completely judge because you're left with a major cliffhanger, and so it's almost like one of the, like, the middle of a Lord of the Rings or something, where you don't really know how it's all going to come out, so you can't really judge it completely.
Again, what I've been thinking since we got out of the movie, basically, with trying as hard as I can to not spoil it, is that this movie is a very different movie right now than it is going to be in a year after we've seen Captain Marvel or Avengers 4. This movie is very much a part of its moment, and is very much the people who made this movie know what the audiences are going to be like seeing it right now. And so I think seeing it right now is important to get the full impact.
Right. And it was interesting talking to my husband and Josh's father. He's been doing a lot of background watching of like Emergency Awesome and other people. And they were so secretive about this script. There were very few of the actors who were able to see the entire script to know. Benedict Cumberbatch was one of the few because he felt like since his character was supposed to know more of the story, that for him to be able to act his scenes, he felt that he needed to see the overarching thing. But like the guy that plays Spider-Man, Tom Holland, I think maybe he only got like 25 pages.
Probably only got his scenes.
Right, he only got his scenes. Just like each character maybe only got 25 pages or something. None of them really knew what the film was going to be until they saw it themselves, which is kind of interesting. I mean, that's how secretive they've been about it. I don't read the comic books. I have no idea if this matched a comic book series storyline, and that true geek fans really knew what was going to happen, or if it was a surprise.
I'm also not a true blue comic guy, so I haven't read the comics that this is supposedly based on, but
right.
I mean, it is, Thanos does get the gauntlet with all the Infinity Stones. It is kind of the big story that happens.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
There are people who are more aware of where the story could go or has gone in previous iterations, but yeah. So overall, thumbs up from a more casual Marvel fan and a more hardcore Marvel fan, and we're going to be anxiously awaiting. So it's a year from now is the next Avengers movie, yeah,
and
it's like May 9th, I think, or something like that, of 2019 for the American release.
Okay, and so the Captain Marvel is
Marvel is early 2019. I want to say it's like a March movie or something like that.
Okay, so they're going to come pretty close together in sort of the same way that Black Panther came pretty close together to this one next year.
The next one we actually get is later this year. We get Ant-Man and the Wasp, which I do not know for sure, but I think takes place chronologically before this movie.
Okay, so it's
not positive about that.
So we don't know. We're assuming we can't assume that the Ant-Man and Wasp is going to take anything that we've seen in this movie into account. It may be a separate timeline completely.
Well, I don't know about separate timeline.
Okay.
But we know that Captain Marvel, for instance, is taking place in the 90s. 10 years before Tony Stark comes out as Iron Man in 2008.
Okay.
So how much that one is going to feed into Avengers 4 is also yet to be seen.
Okay, well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But we will be there with bells on. Okay, thank you so much for joining Melanie and Josh for a review of Infinity Wars. And then we will do a separate video where we talk about spoilers because there's so many...
Spoilerific, I would say.
Spoilerific because there's so many things to talk about. But really, if you have not seen the film... you need to just go in as spoiler-free as you possibly can to get the full impact.
It's a movie 10 years in the making. I mean...
Right.
You're not going to not see it, is my opinion.
Right.
We can't stop you.
Okay. Follow Pardesi on Twitter @PardesiYT. And please subscribe, like, and share this video. If you hit the bell when you subscribe, then you'll get a notification whenever I have a new film review, trailer reaction, or live stream.